Gabriel Macht, renowned for his role as Harvey Specter in the hit TV series Suits, opened up about the emotional challenges he faced when returning to the United States after living abroad for several years. Macht, who was born and raised in Los Angeles, had relocated to a different country, seeking a new chapter in life far from the hustle and bustle of Hollywood and the complexities of his fame. However, his return was marked by a deeply personal and difficult experience, particularly when he encountered the aftermath of the massive wildfire that ravaged Pacific Palisades, a neighborhood he once called home. As Macht returned to the U.S., he was struck by how the landscape of his childhood had changed, a visual representation of the ongoing environmental challenges facing California. Pacific Palisades, a coastal community known for its natural beauty and affluence, was left devastated by the wildfires. Macht described it as heartbreaking to witness the destruction, especially as it was a place filled with memories from his upbringing. The fire had decimated much of the area, leaving behind scorched earth and damaged properties. The neighborhood, which had once been a tranquil and picturesque haven, now stood in stark contrast to the idyllic version he had remembered. Macht's emotional reaction to the tragedy was compounded by the sense of helplessness he felt while being far away. He had spent years outside the country, attempting to build a life separate from the overwhelming pressures of Hollywood. Yet, despite his physical distance, the connection to his roots in Pacific Palisades remained strong. Seeing the familiar landscape destroyed by nature's fury made him feel more acutely the vulnerability of the world, a world that he had always taken for granted. His return, meant to be a reconnection with his past, became a somber reminder of the fragility of life and the inevitable changes that time and natural disasters bring. For Macht, the return to the U.S. was not just a geographical shift but an emotional one. It required confronting both the personal changes in his own life and the broader changes occurring in his home state. The wildfire, which was a result of increasingly unpredictable weather patterns and poor forest management, reflected a larger global issue of climate change. Macht's reflections on the destruction of Pacific Palisades served as a sobering metaphor for the erosion of what once seemed permanent. What had once been a safe, idyllic place now felt impermanent, fragile, and uncertain. This experience led Macht to further question the decisions he had made in leaving Los Angeles in the first place. While he had long yearned for a life away from the glare of the spotlight, the devastation of the wildfire prompted him to consider the broader implications of the choices he had made, not just for his own life, but for his connection to the land and people he had once known. The process of returning was not just about dealing with the physical changes in his environment, but also about navigating the emotional landscape of his own past and how it intertwined with the shifting reality of California's future. Macht also reflected on the broader cultural and societal implications of the wildfire and the shifting nature of communities in California. He spoke candidly about how the destruction of the Pacific Palisades area was a symptom of a larger pattern of urban sprawl and the increasing frequency of natural disasters in the region. The increasingly severe wildfires were not just devastating for those who lived in the immediate vicinity, but were a stark reminder of the environmental degradation taking place on a global scale. With his return to the U.S., Macht found himself grappling with the difficult reality that his homeland was facing an uncertain future, and the loss of Pacific Palisades was just one example of the profound impact climate change was having on the world. Macht's emotional journey upon returning to the U.S. was also marked by a deeper reflection on his own life and the concept of home. Although he had been away for years, the devastation of Pacific Palisades made him realize just how deeply his roots were embedded in California. His career, family, and personal identity had been shaped by the city and the state. Yet, seeing it destroyed made him reconsider the idea of home itself and how one's sense of belonging could be altered by external forces like natural disasters. In many ways, Macht's return to the U.S. was a moment of reckoning. It was a reminder that no matter how far one tries to distance themselves from the world they grew up in, the bonds to the past remain strong, and when those ties are threatened or severed, the emotional toll can be profound. The fire, as destructive as it was, symbolized not just the loss of a place, but also the disruption of a personal narrative. For Macht, the loss of Pacific Palisades marked a turning point in his understanding of the world, forcing him to confront the impact of larger societal forces on both the individual and the collective. In addition to grappling with the emotional and physical devastation, Macht's return also brought into focus the role that celebrities and public figures play in the narrative of disaster and recovery. As someone who had lived much of his life in the public eye, he was keenly aware of the way in which the media often framed such events through a lens of sensationalism or spectacle. The fire had affected real people, families, neighbors, friends, and for Macht, it was important to humanize the tragedy, to see beyond the headlines and acknowledge the real suffering that had taken place. His experience of returning to a changed California also resonated with his experiences on the set of Suits. The show, which had explored the lives of high-powered lawyers in a fictional New York firm, was a testament to the tension between personal ambition and the reality of human relationships. In much the same way, Macht's return to Los Angeles was a reminder that life, much like the world of Suits, is filled with ambition, but also deeply human moments that are shaped by larger forces like nature, time, and the choices we make. As he reflected on the destruction in Pacific Palisades, Macht's thoughts turned to the future. What would California, and the U.S. more broadly, look like in the coming decades? What role would individuals, communities, and even celebrities play in addressing the ongoing environmental challenges facing the world? While Macht's return to the U.S. had been marked by personal loss and devastation, it had also opened up a broader conversation about responsibility, resilience, and the need for collective action in the face of climate change. For Gabriel Macht, the return to California and the site of Pacific Palisades' destruction was a bittersweet homecoming, one that forced him to reckon with the fragility of both the environment and the human experience. It was a stark reminder that the things we take for granted can be lost in an instant, and that the bonds that tie us to the places we call home are not always as secure as they may seem. The fire was a tragic event, but it also prompted a deeper reflection on the ways in which we are all interconnected and the role we each play in shaping the world around us.